Welcome back to another episode of Tales from Outer Space. I'm your host, and tonight we have a fascinating story about the power of language and the depth of human connection across the vastness of the universe. Sit back and let me take you to a future where humanity has joined an interstellar alliance where thousands of species communicate through advanced translation systems, and where a single untranslatable word nearly caused an interstellar incident. The holographic backdrop behind the host shifted from a starfield to an image of a space station, a massive gleaming structure orbiting a blue-green planet. This is the tale of Dr. Mara Jennings, a brilliant linguist who discovered that sometimes the most powerful weapons aren't made of metal or energy, but of meaning. In a spacious lecture hall aboard the Alliance space station, Harmonia, Dr. Mara Jennings stood before a diverse audience of diplomats, scientists, and cultural attachés from dozens of species. Her posture was confident, her dark hair pulled back in a practical bun, and her eyes bright with the enthusiasm of someone deeply in love with their work. The Universal Translation System is the backbone of our interstellar civilization, she explained, gesturing to the holographic display behind her showing complex algorithms and language patterns. It has facilitated communication between over 8,000 distinct languages across the Alliance. But today, I want to discuss something unusual, a linguistic anomaly we've recently discovered. The audience stirred. In the 32nd century, anomalies were rarely good news. Mara tapped her wrist device and the display changed to show a single word, Heimat. This is a human word from the Old German language. For the past 3 weeks, our UTS has been unable to accurately translate it to any non-human language. Even more concerning when attempting translation, it causes cascading errors in nearby linguistic pathways. A Centaurian diplomat raised a tentacle. "What does this word mean, Dr. Jennings?" Mara smiled, though there was tension behind it. That's precisely the problem. The closest approximation in common would be homeland or native place, but those translations miss crucial emotional and cultural contexts. Heimat encompasses feelings of belonging, childhood memories, cultural identity, and familial connection. It's not just where you're from, it's what made you who you are. From the back of the hall, a tall, scaled figure rose. Ambassador Scyther of the Draken Empire, his reptilian features impassive, but his voice carrying an edge that silenced the room. "Dr. Jennings, are you suggesting that humans possess a concept that no other species can comprehend that seems supremacist in implication?" Mara's smile faded. "Not at all, Ambassador. Every species has concepts that resist simple translation. The Eridu have 18 words for different types of collective consciousness that humans struggle to grasp. The point isn't that the concept is unique to humans, but rather that our translation system is failing to bridge this particular gap." Ambassador Scythar's scaled ridge flared slightly, a sign of skepticism among his kind. Yet this gap appears precisely when human-Draken treaty negotiations are at a critical juncture. Convenient timing for a technical error, wouldn't you say? Murmurs spread through the audience. The human-Draken relationship had always been tense with the Reptilian Empire, viewing Earth's rapid expansion with suspicion. Commander Astra of the Alliance Peacekeeping Forces, a tall Andromedan with silvery skin, stepped forward. "Let's not jump to conclusions, Ambassador. Dr. Jennings is here to solve a technical problem, not create a diplomatic one." But the damage was done. As Mara concluded her presentation, she could see the division in the room, those who viewed the translation issue as a fascinating linguistic puzzle, and those who saw it as something more sinister. Later that evening, Mara sat in her quarters reviewing the day's events with her partner, via holographic call. "I should have anticipated Scythar's reaction," she said, rubbing her temples. "The Draken are already suspicious of Earth's cultural expansion programs." Her spouse, Elian, appeared as a shimmering blue hologram, holding their young child on Earth. "You couldn't have known they'd twist a linguistic anomaly into a conspiracy theory." Their child, 5-year-old Talia, leaned into the hologram. "Mama, when are you coming home?" The question pierced Mara's heart. "Soon, little star. I just need to fix one tricky word first." "Which word?" Talia asked, eyes wide with childish curiosity. "Heimat," Mara answered. It means home but bigger. It means all the things that make you feel safe and loved." Talia nodded solemnly. "Like when you read me stories and we watch the fireflies in summer." Mara felt her eyes mist. "Exactly like that." After the call ended, Mara sat in silence, thinking about her daughter's innocent interpretation. Perhaps there was something there, something she had been missing in her scientific approach. The next morning, Mara made her way to the tech labs, where she had arranged to meet Calix, the station's lead AI engineer. A lanky proximan, with iridescent skin, and 4 arms that moved with graceful precision, Calix had been working on the Universal Translation System for decades. "I've reviewed your findings, Dr. Jennings," Calix said, multiple hands manipulating holographic code that flowed around them like luminous rivers. "The error patterns are unlike anything I've seen before. It's as if the word Heimat is actively resisting translation." "Anthropomorphizing a technical glitch," Calix, Mara teased. The proximan's skin rippled with amusement. "Perhaps, but look here." 4 fingers pointed to different streams of code simultaneously. "When the UTS encounters Heimat, it attempts to map the concept across emotional, geographical, cultural, and temporal dimensions simultaneously. In every other case of complex translation, the system prioritizes one dimension and treats the others as modifiers. But with this word, the dimensions are inseparable." Mara leaned closer. "So it's not that Heimat can't be translated. It's that our translation model isn't designed to handle concepts where all dimensions carry equal weight." "Precisely, and when forced to choose, the system crashes." Their work was interrupted by an urgent message from Commander Astra. The Draken delegation had filed a formal complaint with the Alliance Council, claiming that the Heimat anomaly was a deliberate human attempt to insert untranslatable propaganda into diplomatic communications. "They're demanding an emergency council session," Commander Astra's holographic form explained. "Ambassador Sci-Fi is pushing for a temporary suspension of human voting rights until the issue is resolved." Mara felt cold dread settle in her stomach. "That's absurd. It's a technical glitch, not a conspiracy." "I know that," Astra replied, her silvery features concerned. "But the Draken have convinced several smaller factions that this could be the first step in some form of linguistic domination. You need to resolve this quickly, Dr. Jennings. The political situation is deteriorating." After Astra's message faded, Calix looked at Mara with all 4 of his eyes blinking in sequence, a sign of deep concern among proximans. "Politics," he said simply. "Always complicating good science." "We need to accelerate our work," Mara replied, pushing aside her frustration. "Can you run a deep learning scan on human literature featuring Heimat? I'll gather empirical emotional response data from human subjects." As they worked, news spread throughout the station. Human residents began experiencing subtle discrimination. Several human diplomats reported being excluded from meetings. In the station's central plaza, a group of concerned citizens from various species had begun a daily vigil, holding signs that read, "Language is power," and "Translate, don't dominate." 5 days into the crisis, Mara was summoned to meet with the human ambassador to the Alliance, a stern woman named Eleanor Washington. "The situation is worse than you know, Dr. Jennings," Ambassador Washington said, her office overlooking the curved arc of the space station. "The Draken are moving warships to the edge of human space, claiming it's a precautionary measure." Mara stared in disbelief. "Over a translation error? Over what they perceive as human duplicity?" Ambassador Scythar has been very effective in spinning this narrative that humans are using linguistic weapons for cultural domination. It doesn't help that we've had several colonial misunderstandings in the past century. Mara thought of her daughter back on Earth, watching fireflies in a garden that could soon be under threat. "What do you need me to do?" "Fix the translation. Prove that Heimat is not a threat. and do it before the emergency council session in 3 days. The pressure mounting Mara expanded her team, bringing in human linguists, cultural anthropologists, and even poets to dissect the concept of Heimat. Meanwhile, Calix and his technical team worked around the clock, restructuring the translation algorithms to accommodate multidimensional concept mapping. On the second day, they had a breakthrough. "Look at this," said Dr. Yumi Tanaka, a cultural anthropologist Mara had brought in. She projected a map of human migration patterns over the past 1,000 years. "We've been thinking of Heimat as a fixed location, but historically, it's fluid. For nomadic populations, Heimat traveled with them. It was about people and rituals, not geography." "That fits with our neural mapping," added Calix, bringing up a brain scan. "When humans think of Heimat, they activate memory centers, emotional processing, and social cognition simultaneously. It's not a place, it's a relationship." Mara felt a surge of excitement. "That's it. We've been trying to translate Heimat as a noun, but it functions more like a verb, an ongoing process of belonging." Their excitement was short-lived. That evening, a delegation of Draken representatives demanded entry to their lab, claiming security concerns. Led by a military officer named Krazak, they methodically inspected the team's work, taking scans and samples. "Your alleged technical glitch has caused significant distress throughout the Alliance," Krazak stated, his scaled face betraying no emotion. "The Empire wishes to ensure you are not developing linguistic viruses that could contaminate our communication systems." After they left, Mara's team discovered that several data nodes had been compromised. Calix's careful recalibrations of the translation algorithm had been corrupted, setting their work back by days. This was deliberate sabotage. Calix fumed, his skin cycling through angry reds and oranges. "They don't want us to fix the translation." Mara considered this unsettling possibility. "But why? What benefit would the Draken gain from prolonging this crisis?" The answer came the next morning in a classified briefing from Alliance Intelligence. An analyst named Jiro Hayashi presented evidence that the Draken Empire was using the Heimat crisis as a pretext to strengthen their military presence near disputed territories along the human-Draken border. "They've been looking for an excuse to remilitarize these regions for years," Hayashi explained. "The translation issue gives them plausible justification, while making humans appear to be the aggressors." Mara felt the weight of responsibility descend upon her shoulders. What had begun as an interesting linguistic puzzle had evolved into a potential flashpoint for interstellar conflict. And somehow, she was at the center of it all. That night, unable to sleep, Mara wandered the station's botanical gardens, a place designed to offer familiar comfort to all species. Among earth plants, she found a small grove of birch trees, their white bark gleaming under artificial moonlight. The sight unexpectedly brought tears to her eyes. As a child in Finland, she had played in forests just like this. The specific quality of light filtering through the leaves, the sound of wind in the branches, the smell of the earth, it all triggered a profound sense of belonging. This was Heimat. Struck by inspiration, Mara contacted her team. "We've been approaching this wrong," she said. "We've been trying to dissect Heimat scientifically, but it's an experienced concept. We need to demonstrate it, not explain it." With the council session mere hours away, they worked feverishly on a new approach. Instead of trying to fix the translation algorithm, they would bypass it entirely with something more powerful: direct emotional and sensory communication. When the Alliance Council convened, the chamber was tense with anticipation. Representatives from over 50 species filled the tiered seating, with the human and Draken delegations positioned at opposite sides. At the center, the Seven Elders, the Alliance's highest administrative body, presided over the proceedings. Ambassador Scythar spoke first, his deep voice resonating through the chamber. "Esteemed Council, the Draken Empire comes before you today with grave concerns. For too long, we have trusted the humans' technological tools to facilitate our communication. Now, we discover they have embedded untranslatable concepts, linguistic weapons that bypass our cultural defenses. Murmurs spread through the assembly as Sithar continued building a case that the Heimat anomaly was merely the first step in a human plan for cultural imperialism. He concluded, with a shocking demand, "Until this threat is neutralized, we propose that all human linguistic contributions to the Alliance be subject to Draken oversight." When it was time for the human response, Ambassador Washington stepped aside. "The Council has heard many theories today," she said. "Now, I invite you to experience the truth. I present Dr. Mara Jennings, who will demonstrate the meaning of Heimat." Mara walked to the center of the chamber, conscious of hundreds of alien eyes upon her. Beside her, Calix managed a complex array of sensory projection equipment they had worked through the night to prepare. Distinguished representatives. Mara began, "Rather than tell you what Heimat means, I want to show you. With your permission, I will share a direct sensory experience, one that bypasses language entirely." After receiving approval from the elders, Mara activated the system. The chamber darkened, and a gentle mist filled the air, carrying subtle scents, calibrated to trigger positive associations across species. Holographic images appeared not sharp and defined, but soft and impressionistic, showing landscapes from dozens of worlds. The soundscape shifted to include children's laughter, the rustle of wind-distant music. "What you're experiencing is not Heimat itself," Mara explained, as the sensory bath enveloped the council. "Rather, these are the universal elements that make up such concepts across all our cultures. The specifics differ, but the essential experience of belonging transcends species." The display shifted to show a human child, Mara's own daughter, sitting in a garden at twilight, watching fireflies with wide-eyed wonder. For this child, Heimat is the garden where she sits with her parents, watching tiny lights dance in the gathering darkness. It's the stories told to her by grandparents, the celebrations that mark the seasons, the foods that comfort her when she's sad. The projection changed again, showing an elderly human couple tending a small plot of land, their faces weathered but content. For them, Heimat is the land they've worked for 60 years, where they raised their children and buried their ancestors. It's not about owning the soil, it's about the relationship forged through time and care. Next came images of a nomadic human community, dismantling tents and loading animals before moving to new grounds. And for these people, Heimat is not fixed in space at all. It resides in the patterns of their movement, in their traditions, in the connections between community members. They carry their Heimat with them. As the sensory experience continued, Mara could see the effect it was having. Many council members had closed their eyes, immersing themselves in the feelings being evoked. Even some of the Draken representatives appeared affected, their normally rigid postures softening. "The translation error occurs," Mara continued, "because our current system tries to reduce Heimat to a single concept, a place, a feeling, a relationship, or a memory. But it is all of these simultaneously existing in perfect balance. And I believe every species in this council has an equivalent concept, though you may call it by different names." She nodded to Calix, who initiated the final sequence. Now the sensory projections adapted to each species in the chamber, drawing from their own cultural databases to evoke their specific versions of Heimat. A Draken elder gasped audibly as she experienced the volcanic nesting grounds where her species hatched their young. An Andromedan delegate trembled as he felt the simulated pressure of the deep ocean communities where his ancestors had evolved. Representative after representative experienced personalized versions of the same fundamental concept, belonging, origin, identity. When the lights returned, the chamber remained silent for several long moments. Finally, Elder Marath of the Volcran, the most senior council member, spoke. "Dr. Jennings, you have given us a rare gift today, the ability to truly understand a concept across the boundaries of biology and culture. I believe I speak for many when I say we have all experienced our own version of Heimat today. Ambassador Scythar rose, his earlier aggression noticeably diminished. The demonstration was affecting, he admitted reluctantly. But this does not answer why your translation systems failed to convey this concept properly. It was Calix who answered, stepping forward with newfound confidence. Because, Ambassador, our translation approach was fundamentally flawed. We were trying to translate words when we should have been translating experiences. He activated a display, showing the new translation algorithm they had developed. This updated system no longer attempts to find equivalent words. Instead, it maps the neurological and emotional patterns triggered by concepts, then identifies patterns that create similar responses in the target species. Elder Morath studied the display. You're suggesting a complete overhaul of how we approach translation. Yes, Mara confirmed. Words will always fail us when trying to bridge the deepest aspects of our different cultures. But shared experience can succeed where vocabulary fails. To demonstrate, she spoke the word Heimat again. But this time, the translation systems produced not a single word in response, but rather a brief sensory impression, customized to each species. For the Draken, it evoked the warmth of hatching sands and the protective presence of the Clutch Guardian. For the Andromedans, it conveyed the pressure and community of the deep-sea environments where they evolved. This is not a perfect solution, Mara acknowledged. But it's a first step toward truly understanding each other beyond the limitations of language. The Council deliberated for hours, but the outcome was clear. The Heimat crisis had been diffused. The Draken delegation, while not fully satisfied, withdrew their most extreme demands. A joint committee was established to implement and refine the new translation approach with representatives from all major Alliance species. As the council session concluded, Ambassador Scythar approached Mara privately. Your demonstration was illuminating, Dr. Jennings. He said, scales shifting in a pattern that indicated reluctant respect. Perhaps we have been too quick to assume malicious intent. We all protect what matters to us, Ambassador, Mara replied. Your Heimat is as precious to you as mine is to me. Scythar's eyes narrowed, but there was a new understanding in them. Indeed, though I would not call it by your human word. That's precisely the point, Mara smiled. In the weeks that followed, the tension between humans and Drakens gradually eased. The military vessels withdrew from the border regions. The protesters in the station plaza transformed their vigil into a cultural exchange, sharing their own species' versions of Heimat through art, music, and ritual. 3 months after the crisis, Mara finally returned to Earth. Stepping out of the transport in Helsinki, she felt the crisp autumn air fill her lungs. Elian and Talia were waiting, Talia bouncing with excitement. Mama, did you fix the word? Mara lifted her daughter, breathing in the sweet scent of her hair. In a way, little star. But more importantly, we learned that some things can't be fixed with just words. Sometimes, you have to feel them together. The next day, Mara visited a kindergarten near their home, as she had promised the Alliance Council she would do. In a room filled with wide-eyed 5-year-olds, she sat cross-legged on a colorful mat. Today I want to talk about a special word, she began. It's called Heimat. A little boy raised his hand. Is that like home? It's like home, but bigger, Mara explained, echoing what she had told Talia. It's all the things that make you feel safe and happy, and like you belong. She helped the children create collages, representing their own personal sense of Heimat pictures, of families' houses, favorite places, beloved toys and friends. As they worked, Mara reflected on how these children instinctively understood what had nearly caused an interstellar incident. That evening, as Mara watched the sunset from their garden, Elian joined her with 2 glasses of wine. To solving interstellar crises, Elian toasted. Mara smiled, clinking her glass against her partner's. I didn't solve it, not really. We just found a better way to misunderstand each other. That's all diplomacy is in the end. They sat in comfortable silence, watching Talia chase fireflies in the gathering darkness, creating memories that would someday form part of her own complex understanding of Heimat. Later that night, as Mara was preparing for bed, her communication device chimed with a priority message from Commander Astra. "I hate to disturb your well-deserved rest, Dr. Jennings," the Andromedan said, "but we've encountered another linguistic anomaly. This time, it's a cetacean concept that resists translation into any humanoid language. Given your recent success, the Council has requested your expertise once again." Mara sighed, but there was a smile behind it. "What's the word?" The closest approximation in human language would be soul-tied, but that misses crucial aspects of temporal perception and collective memory. "I'll be on the next transport," Mara promised. After ending the call, she walked to Talia's room, watching her daughter sleep peacefully, surrounded by the security of home. This feeling right here was worth protecting, worth explaining to beings whose biology and culture were unfathomably different from her own. Because beneath the differences, the need for belonging remained constant across all sentient life. "Sleep well, little star," she whispered. "Mama has more words to fix." In her dreams that night, Mara saw a universe of beings, each surrounded by their own version of Heimat, protective bubbles of meaning and belonging that sometimes touched, sometimes overlapped, and sometimes remained separate. But in her dream, these bubbles were not barriers, but windows through which understanding could flow, if only one knew how to look. The next morning, as she packed for her return to the Alliance station, Mara included the collages made by the kindergarten children. Sometimes, she had learned the simplest expressions of complex concepts were the most powerful. And sometimes, the children understood intuitively what adults had forgotten, that home was not just where you were from, but what had shaped you, held you, and sent you forth into the vast universe with the courage to build bridges across the stars. "Taking your work home wasn't enough," Elian teased, seeing the colorful papers. "The opposite," Mara replied. "I'm taking home to my work. After all, isn't that what Heimat really means? The ability to carry what matters with us wherever we go?" As her transport lifted off from Earth's surface, Mara watched her planet recede, the blue marble that had given birth to humanity, the cradle from which they had ventured to the stars. For all its flaws and complications, Earth remained humanity's first and most fundamental Heimat. And yet she realized the concept had evolved as humans spread across the galaxy. Now, Heimat could be found on distant worlds, on space stations, in communities bound not by geography, but by shared purpose. Perhaps that was the final lesson of the crisis. Heimat was not static. It grew and changed as people did. And in teaching other species about this complex human concept, Mara had deepened her own understanding of it. Somewhere among the stars ahead, new challenges awaited, new words to bridge, new concepts to share. And in that ongoing conversation between wildly different forms of life, humanity would continue to find its place in the vast, strange family of sentient beings that populated the galaxy. One word at a time. And that, dear listeners, is the story of how a single untranslatable word nearly caused an interstellar incident, and how understanding can sometimes be found beyond the boundaries of language. Join us next week on Tales from Outer Space, when we explore the mysterious disappearance of the Arcturian harmony crystals. Until then, may your journeys through the cosmos be peaceful ones. The holographic host smiled and faded from view, leaving the audience to ponder the power of language and the universal desire for a place to call Heimat.